doing? So I had kind of a big day in that I talked on the phone a lot. I talked to my therapist and I talked to my parents, and I hadn't talked to them in a few months. They've been moving, so they also have been busy, but it was good for me to call them when I did. And overall, it's just been kind of a day of reorganizing. I reorganized in here. I don't know if you can really tell, because that part of it isn't really in the shot. And of course, I did go to church last night. And then I guess next Tuesday is the Annunciation. So I didn't realize that we'll be having church services next Tuesday also. But I'm looking forward to that. And I'd like to get back to Ecclesiastes because I like that book a lot. And I think it would help me to read it today. I think we've read like 7 and 8. We've read like a few parts of Ecclesiastes now. Yeah, we've read like 6 and 7. Oh. This hat has Velcro. It was pulling my hair. Sorry. So there comes a question at the end of Ecclesiastes 3. I think I'll read 3 and 4 today because Ecclesiastes 3 starts out with the bird song, turn, turn, turn. To all things there is an appointed time, and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to slay and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to be far from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rent and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. So this is a great part of Ecclesiastes and the Bible in general to read. It really illustrates that they're setting up this idea of dichotomy between you can have this or you can have this. But actually the reality of situations occupies the space between those two extremes. It's very rare that you have a situation where two extremes are the reality and the totality of a situation. Most of us exist in gray area. The world is technicolor, it's not black and white. What if you have a time of war that is a time of love? What if you have a time to seek that's also a time to cast away? oftentimes very contradictory things exist simultaneously. Many things can be true at once, and while everything does have its season and its time in our lives, that doesn't mean that is the totality of it. That time exists also for certain people at certain times. It might not exist for all of us simultaneously, but I guess now we would be getting into a discussion of eschatology, which is not my aim with Ecclesiastes today. Maybe we'll get into that later. What profit hath he that worketh of the thing wherein he travaileth? I have seen the travail that God hath given to ye sons of men, and humble them thereby. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also he hath set the world in the heart, yet cannot man find out the work that God hath wrought from the beginning even to the end. I know that there is nothing good in them but to rejoice and to do good in his life, and also that every man eateth and drinketh, and seeth the commodity of all his labor. This is the gift of God. So again, talking about the vanity of those things which we accomplish during our lives here on earth. I know that whatsoever God shall do, it shall be forever. To it can no man add, and from it can none diminish. For God hath done it, that they should fear before him. What is that hath been? That is now, and that shall be, hath now been. For God requireth that which is past. And moreover I have seen under the sun the place of judgment, which was wickedness, and the place of justice, where was iniquity. So this also is speaking of, I have seen things change positively for the better in my own lifetime. I thought in mine heart, God will judge the just and the wicked, for time is there for every purpose and for every work. So while the first paragraph addresses these things in terms of either or, now here further down, they're talking about these things in much more general and broad spectrum. Everything has a time for everyone. I considered in mine heart the state of the children of men, that God had purged them, yet to see to, they are in themselves as beasts. For the condition of the children of men and the condition of beasts are even as one condition unto them. As the one dieth, so dieth the other, for they have all one breath, and there is no excellency of man above ye beast, for all is vanity. All go to one place, and all was of the dust, and all shall return to the dust. Who knoweth whether the spirit of man ascend upward, and the spirit of the beast descend downward to the earth? Therefore I see that there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice in his affairs, because that is his portion. For who shall bring him to see what shall be after him? So all go to one place, all was of the dust, and all shall return to the dust. That's the only thing that we here on earth know for sure, which is where faith fills in and tells us that some of us go to heaven, some of us go to hell. But we can't be certain of those things until we get there. We can only be certain that we are created from dust, and to dust we shall return. So I turned and considered all the oppressions that are wrought under the sun, and behold the tears of the oppressed, and none comforteth them. And lo, the strength is of the hand of them that oppress them, and none comforteth them. Wherefore I praise the dead, which now are dead, above the living, which are yet alive. And I count him better than them both, which hath not yet been. For he hath not seen the evil works which are wrought under the sun. Also I beheld all travail, and all perfections of works, that this is ye envy of a man against his neighbor. This also is vanity and vexation of the spirit. The fool foldeth his hands, and eateth up his own flesh. Better is a handful with quietness than 2 handfuls with labor and vexation of spirit. Again I returned and saw vanity under the sun. There is one alone, and there is not a second, which hath neither son nor brother. Yet is there none end of all his travail. Neither can his eye be satisfied with riches, neither doeth he think, for whom do I travail and defraud my soul of pleasure? This also is vanity, and this is an evil travail. 2 are better than 1, for they have better wages for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe unto him that is alone, for he falleth, and there is not a second to lift him up. So this is even talking a little bit about the purpose of community in our lives and the reasons that we should congregate together and find community among each other, that when we fall, someone will be there to lift us up again. Also, if 2 sleep together, then shall they have heat. But to one how should there be heat? And if one overcome him, 2 shall stand against him, and a 3-fold cord is not easily broken. So we have power in our numbers as well. Better is a poor and wise child than an old and foolish king, which will no more be admonished. For out of the prison he cometh forth to reign, whenas he that is born in his kingdom is made poor. I beheld all the living which walk under the sun, and the second child, which shall stand up in his place. There is none end of all the people, nor of all that were before him. And they that come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this is also vanity and vexation of spirit. Take heed to thy foot when thou enterest into the house of God, and be more near to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they know not that they do evil. So that's Ecclesiastes 3 and 4. And I enjoy that book very much. I enjoy the voice of it. Throughout the Bible, you can tell that there were several authors because of the different voices in which people write. And the voice of Ecclesiastes, I think, is my favorite of all of the, even though it's obviously it's translation, and this one is the Geneva Bible, so it's a bit archaic in its tone. I enjoy that era of literature a lot, actually, too, and reading things like Bede and Petrarch. Shout out in the comments if you know who I'm talking about. Or the Canterbury Tales and Shakespeare, those kind of like archaic ways of speaking English. But I would love to hear from all of you, your experiences during this Lenten season. I hope you are all staying blessed, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.